award-winning Tennessee Wildcast is on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee Wildcast. We're glad you're tuning in. Thanks for watching, listening. We're back at Region 3.
Yes.
Since we're here, we're going to shoot multiple shows. We're going to have a good time here, and appreciate Mimi having us. We've got another fun show lined up for you today. It's maybe not the most fun topic, but it's what folks need to know about. Invasive species, invasive carp specifically today. Mm-hmm. So, good conversation. The great thing is we don't have them in Region 3 right now.
No, we want to make sure
good.
of that. Yes.
So that's why we're talking about this today, to make sure you know how to keep them from moving or how you can help. Let us know what you see, et cetera, et cetera. But today we have Cole Harty, the A&S coordinator, with us, and Kristen Chestnut-Faull, the regional invasive carp manager for Region 3. So appreciate you guys joining us.
Thanks
for having us.
I'm excited to meet you guys. I know Cole. I don't know Kristen very well, so we're excited to learn a little bit about you. And what do you say we just jump right in with that?
Yeah, we don't have carp here yet, but we still get a lot of questions, so thanks for helping us spread good knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Cole, why don't you jump in? Folks have met you. You've been on another show with us before, or you've been on a couple shows, and so go ahead and remind folks what you do for the agency, and then we'll jump in with Kristen.
All right. Well, I'm the Aquatic Nuisance Species Coordinator, so I really work with our fishery staff all across the state, dealing with nuisance species, invasive species. I spend a good amount of my time focused on invasive carp, so this is a pretty pertinent show here.
Yeah.
So. You're heading west usually, so we appreciate you coming east.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's important. What you do is important. All our positions are needed, but this one, as those fish move in, those invasives move in, we're
gonna keep trying to knock them back. That's what we're working on.
Yeah.
And before we get to you, Kristen, I didn't ask what was your graduate work focused on? Did you focus on aquatic nuisance species?
I did not. My graduate work focused on catfish, and
wow.
it was exciting work at Tennessee Tech. Worked with channel catfish and blue catfish on a couple of Tennessee River reservoirs, Kentucky Lake, Chickamauga, and Fort Loudon. So,
okay.
Cool.
But, I also was a technician while I was at Tennessee Tech working for the fisheries unit there. So there was another student at the time doing invasive carp work, and really some of the initial work in the state here that happened. And I got to be a part of that, going out and assisting with that project. So kind of familiar with it from the get-go back in at least 2015-ish.
Mm-hmm.
We got to look at all the species.
Yeah, for sure.
So Kristen, is this your first Wildcast?
This is my first Wildcast, yes.
How exciting.
And nervous.
It's fun.
No.
So tell us about yourself and your background.
So I've been with the agency for about a year and a half now. I've been in Tennessee for about almost 3 years now, so I did a little bit of private consulting work before getting hired on. And so I'm the invasive carp manager here in Region 3, so I spend a lot of time up and down the Tennessee River on the eastern side looking for carp. What's
your background?
My background is more in sport fish management. I did my master's work on catfish as well in West Virginia, doing some population dynamic stuff. And I also helped on some carp stuff while in grad school up and down the Ohio River, monitoring the receivers to track them. So.
And you both probably are well aware of how invasive carp impact everything. So yeah.
Yes.
They do.
So where did you go to school? I guess not in Tennessee, right?
No, I did half of my master's at West Virginia University, and then the other half in Missouri at Missouri State University.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always curious where folks studied and where they come from. A lot of folks come from Tech or UT, so I'm always interested.
Yes, I'm new to Tennessee.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here for sure. One other quick question. Maybe this is for Cole. So do we have other folks like Kristen around the state?
We do. So Kristen is, like you've mentioned, our Region 3 invasive carp crew lead.
Right.
We're hoping to hire a technician for her here soon. And that will essentially complete our Region 3 crew. We also have a full crew over in Region 1, so Western Tennessee. And that consists of a Manager 1, a Tech 2, and a Tech 1 over there. And their full-time duties are carp work.
Okay.
So,
So 1 and 3 right now.
They're keeping pretty busy over there on Reelfoot and Kentucky Lake and Barkley. And they also, both Kristen and the Region 1 crew, really do work kind of across the state, you know. So we do have some systems in Region 2, Cheatham Reservoir and into Old Hickory there that also have carp, and some work on the Duck River too. So the invasive carp crews really work kind of throughout the whole carp region, I guess.
Yeah, they help each other out and move around.
Let's not let that stick.
Yeah.
Let's not call it the carp region.
So we've talked about invasive carp many times, but let's say someone is new to that term, invasive carp. Let's just back up and kind of define that. What are we talking about?
So there are 4 species of invasive carp. They're kind of all categorized within that term. 2 of the, or I guess probably the lesser known, is the black carp. It's a molluscivore, and it would be particularly negative here in Tennessee if those populations start to grow. We've only had a couple of them show up in Kentucky Lake, not here in recent years. I think it's been back in 2018 when just a handful of fish were found, and we're always watching for more. But being a molluscivore like they are, they feed on mussels and snails, and Tennessee has a really high diversity of mussels, and a lot of those are endangered. So, that's a pretty significant threat to our native mussel populations. Another one people have probably heard of, grass carp. They're pretty well known. They've been used, really throughout the country for vegetation control, largely in ponds and places like that. They've been stocked, So
People say, I need to clean out a pond. They go get grass carp.
They do. And in the early days, it wasn't always this way, and we've got some feral populations that can reproduce within the Mississippi River Basin, but nowadays the push is really triploid grass carp, which means they've been modified in a way to where they're sterile and they can't reproduce. So those are required in Tennessee. If you're going to stock grass carp, they need to be triploid, and throughout really the majority of other states. Then the other 2, they're pretty similar in kind of their tendencies, both how they feed and things like that. Are bighead carp and silver carp. They are filter feeders, eat real low on the food chain, eat zooplankton, phytoplankton. Really the base of the food chain that any of our larval sport fish, our young sport fish rely on. They eat, the same things that fish like paddlefish, other native filter feeders rely on as well. We're definitely worried about how abundant the silver carp can become.
Sure.
They're the ones that, we've probably all seen it at this point, being shown jumping out of the water.
Sometimes called jumping carp, or, they got a lot of names.
Yep, and they can be dangerous.
Yeah.
It's, you don't want to be pulled by a tube or on skis or something down the reservoir or fishing and have one of these things jump and hit you or jump in your boat and break your fishing poles or whatever. So
that feeding pattern, I was just going to ask you, why are these invasive fish so successful? How are they so successful in our state?
So a couple of things. We do have very productive systems, and so there's a lot of resources out there for them, which is really a good thing, because our native fish seem to still be able to sustain and get what they need and do well. We haven't seen the populations explode to such a level yet in our systems. like they have maybe in some other areas. Certainly are concerned about that and watching for more of that. But they also, don't have predators, essentially. They're vulnerable when they're first born or when they're young for a short amount of time, but they grow so fast that before you know it, they're too big for anything that we have here to eat them.
So they're growing faster than our native species.
Right. Yep. And so they're able to kind of exploit that new niche, if you will. That's that nothing can prey on them, and nothing can. And they've got the resources they need. So
yeah. Well, so where do I think specifically about the silver carp? Where do they come from? How'd they get here?
So they're native to parts of Asia, and they were brought over to the States for a variety of reasons. From aquaculture, using them in pond settings to, keep the algae removed,
sure.
Keep the vegetation down, keep the snails and the mussels out of the ponds. And
obviously, before we had any knowledge.
Right. Well,
right. Yeah.
And so. They're also brought over and used in some situations for food fish. There is a demand for them, a market for them in certain areas, and so once they were brought over, they were eventually released or escaped in one way or another. Ended up in the Mississippi River and have since kind of spread throughout the Mississippi and its tributaries and are impacting states throughout the central portion of the country, really.
So that is their spread right now across the United States, mostly along that Mississippi River system.
Yeah, essentially the whole Mississippi River basin is being impacted by them, and with some, additional threats right now to other basins. So something that we've got an eye on right now is the Tennessee Tom Bigby waterway. So for folks that aren't familiar, over at Pickwick, there's a connection from the Tennessee River basin to the Mobile River basin, and that would be a potential linkage where these fish could actually jump to a whole new basin.
Wow.
Yep.
So, but right now, we talk about where they are. Right now, it's just, as far as for Tennessee, where are they? Where can people find them?
So in Tennessee, our western border is the Mississippi River, and they're there in large numbers. They reproduce on a fairly regular basis. They then cut up into the Ohio River and move into the Tennessee and Cumberland through our lock and dam systems. So we've got them on the Tennessee River in Kentucky Lake and Pickwick in Tennessee, and then on the Cumberland River, in Barkley, Cheatham, and Old Hickory reservoirs. So those are the primary locations. Of course, anywhere they've got access to tributaries that enter those reservoir systems, they can move up into those. And there are some, individual reports from further upstream in the Tennessee River, places like Gunnersville, and a report from Chickamauga from 2020. And so, those are isolated at this point, reports, not what we are seeing as an established population.
Right.
And we'll talk about reporting here in a little bit.
Yes.
But so how they feed, how quickly they grow has an impact. But on our native species, but tell us a little bit about what happens to an economy or how they're impacting anglers in these areas.
Right. So, they have the potential to negatively impact our native species, and if they do, we would certainly expect a downturn from actual negative impacts that they're having on our resources. The kind of flip side of that is even if they're not having this significant negative impact on our native species, people don't want to deal with them. Like, if you're going out fishing, you don't want to go to a spot where you have to deal with wading through carp on your depth finder while you're looking for fish, or have something that's going to jump in the boat and or hit you, and potentially harm you. And so it's detrimental to some of these local places. These places, Kentucky Lake and Barkley. It's had a pretty significant impact there. Potentially just perceived impacts that people see and moving them elsewhere. So tournaments leave, recreational angling
Yikes.
drops,
Yeah.
because they hear and see carp. And so,
So how are they, and this is a little further down on our list of questions, but how are they spreading then?
so in Tennessee, they move, and really in other places throughout the basin as well, they move through locks and dams. So really the navigation locks that we have established on the Cumberland River and the Tennessee River, they allow for barge traffic and recreational navigation. The fish actually enter those locks as barges or boats are moving up and down, and can move from one system to the next.
What about that whole bait, moving bait?
Bait can be a concern.
Because they look really similar.
They do.
Similar to normal bait fish that you would use to fish with.
And we've got some regulations in place now kind of as a result of their similarities that, over in the western part of the state where we've seen small carp present, that you're not supposed to move bait, like shad and skipjack and things like that might be similar in appearance. So,
because you lay them next to each other, it's hard to tell.
Yeah,
it's
to
about
the
eye
untrained
placement and things.
Yeah, to the untrained eye, it can be very difficult to tell them apart. And
especially smaller ones.
Yeah, so in general, we don't want people to dump bait ever, whether you buy it from the store or collect it yourself. It's best to, if you're not going to use it or if you're done for the day, to dump that bait in the trash, because
It's hard for people to hear, but
it is.
It impacts so many different things. Please don't dump your bait.
Because just not being able to identify something accurately or taking the time to even know what's in that bait bucket, if you just dump it out, you might be introducing something.
Yeah, and we're talking about carp today, but we've talked about ANS in the past, and it could be a crayfish that's invasive. It could be a salamander that has a negative impact.
Something you don't even see,
Yes.
Microscopic, like you talked about before in other shows, the zebra mussels and things like that. It's
Yeah. So that invasive carp, it's a huge one. I mean, we have so many invasive species moving in or in Tennessee already, but invasive carp, we see that economic impact. We see the impact on anglers and our native fish species.
Right.
Woo, you got a big job.
We got a lot going on. We're trying hard here.
I'm tired just talking.
well, I'm excited to learn about what Kristen does in the region and what the regional focus is. What you are doing. I guess you're a one-man crew right now, right?
yes, but I have a lot of other managers and techs helping me out,
got a lot of
and
help.
an intern. So
There you go.
yeah, we have help. So what we really do in Region 3 is we go below the major dams on the Tennessee River. So like Nickajack Dam, Chickamauga Dam, Watts Bar Dam, Fort Loudon Dam, and Melton Hill. And we do monitoring surveys. So we go out every other week pretty much from at least May to September and monitor what's below these dams to see if any fish are trying to move up or if we can pick any up. And we've been doing this since 2020, and we've never collected a carp. So that's awesome.
That's great news. Yeah.
Yes, and we've spent a lot of hours out, looking. I think in 2020 it was over 25 hours just electrofishing, and then we doubled that in 2021.
And that's just electrofishing pedal time.
Specifically for these fish. So
Okay.
we also do annual sport fish surveys. So we're out there in different places, and if we would see anything, we would note that, write that down, let Cole know. And then we also have creel technicians out there. Last year it was on Chickamauga. This year it's on Nickajack. So he's out there almost every day talking to anglers, seeing what they're seeing, So we have a lot of different, ways to monitor.
Yeah.
So at this point, we're safe here in our region. Watts Bar, Chickamauga, all those names, how hot Chickamauga is right now on the fishing circuit. We're safe right now.
For right now, we can at least say that that we are not encountering these species in our surveys. We don't have an established population here, and And just to add on to what Kristen said too, the number of people out on these resources on a daily basis, if there were people encountering these fish, we'd be getting reports of that.
You'd be hearing about it.
Yeah.
So, just the fact that, Kristen, we have you in place, so much care goes in and so much science goes into our reservoirs and our fisheries and wildlife, everything that we're doing across the state, that science is important. But you're in place. We don't have them yet, but we're looking heavily.
Yeah. Yes, and we're ready to go if we would ever, pick something up.
As an angler, I really appreciate, personally,
Exactly.
I hope our anglers recognize that effort and thank you for what you both do. I hope we're ahead of it.
Yeah, it's great to hear as an angler that we're out there trying to get out in front of it and make those steps. That's definitely.
So I've heard dams and locks mentioned, and one of the questions that we repeatedly get through social media and other outlets is what can be done in those areas, or why aren't y'all doing things in these areas? So talk to us about those efforts and what can be done.
Yeah, so the issue with these fish moving through the locks has been identified. We know that's how they're getting here, and so a key focus of some of the research that's happening. I'll go into a couple examples about what's going on, but is trying to prevent these things from moving through there. That's how we're going to stop them. Thankfully, we don't see them reproducing on a regular basis in our system, so it gives us some hope that we still have a chance that with what we've got in place, we can knock them back. But
I didn't know that. That's great.
But as far as these locks and these deterrent systems or barriers you've probably heard referred to, there are a few different types of options that are all being explored right now. There's one called the BAF, a bioacoustic fish fence, in place on an experimental basis at Barkley Lock, and it incorporates sound and lights and bubbles at the entrance of the lock, which is basically a way of trying to deter these fish, trying to steer them aside and keep them out of the lock. And that works, at least from the preliminary research here we're seeing, and part of the reasoning behind that is these fish are more sensitive to stimulus than a lot of our native fish.
Is that why they jump? Is that why you see them jumping out of the
That's one of the hypotheses behind, why silver carp will jump. They get startled by a boat engine, or on a quiet morning, if you're in a canoe and you slap the paddle on the water, they might jump out of the water. But
so that fence, that's.
But this though, it's a bubble curtain. And it's just a lot of activity, a lot of commotion, something that they want to tend to avoid and swim away from. So it's showing promise. I don't have any of the numbers here on me right now. It's I think over 50% deterrence with some of the fish that they've had tagged. Other preliminary estimates were even as high as 95%, but it's still very early in that experiment, and we've got a lot more to come on that. So fingers crossed that will have some significant impacts, because none of these technologies that are being explored right now, they're looking at CO2 and within the locks and electricity and things like that. We don't expect any of them to be 100% effective. It's just kind of the reality of the situation and the current technology available. So, but we are pushing for implementing these barriers on our systems. They're expensive. They take a lot of partners to be involved. The TWRA and the Army Corps, all have interests in these dams. And so
we don't control or own the dams.
Right. Yeah. We don't at all. But we're working with these partners and really trying to establish something, trying to get something implemented. So
yeah, that's good. Yeah, we work great with all those folks. There's some good relationships there,
and we've had some good movement here too. We've the TWRA completed an environmental assessment here not too long ago, That's a big step in the right direction for potentially putting a deterrent system on the Tennessee River, or multiple deterrent systems on the Tennessee River. Soon here, the Army Corps is going to be completing an environmental assessment of their own. So,
And one other thing, Cole, that you mentioned to us previously is that it's not just Tennessee that has this issue. You're working, you share that data, you share information interstate.
yes.
So we're not in it alone, and I think that's important to mention.
Yeah, not at all. We're working with states throughout the Mississippi River Basin. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, has awarded grants really to states throughout the basin to work on carp, and we're sharing things with them regularly. It's important to be able to know what other states are doing, to share what we're doing in our state with them, and so that even though what they learn in, say, Illinois or Louisiana may not be directly comparable to what we have going on here in Tennessee, it's entirely possible that they might learn something that we could adapt to our system and use. So,
We also rely on, I think you mentioned it, Kristen, creel surveys and what our anglers are actually seeing out there. So talk to us a little bit in our few minutes here, because I know
We're about to
tell people how they can report. If they think they have seen an invasive carp, what do they do?
So best thing you can do is get up with your regional office. If you're seeing juvenile carp in West Tennessee, we want to know about that. We don't need to know about adults over there. We kind of know they're there. But anywhere in East Tennessee, we certainly want to know if you see a carp. Get the best picture you can, freeze that fish, and get up with your regional office.
Yeah, and regional contacts, tnwildlife.org. You can find phone numbers, addresses, all that on our website. So we want to know about it.
Yes.
We have a lot of information on invasive carp at tnwildlife.org too. We encourage people to visit the website, learn about this fish, learn to identify it, and definitely reach out to us with questions.
And a lot more on some of the programs that I was too long-winded to get to today, like our harvest programs and stuff.
The harvest program.
Commercial anglers bringing in a lot of pounds of fish.
Over 16 million pounds since the start of it.
Yes,
So,
that's awesome.
Yep.
Thank you both.
So,
Great
Thank
information.
Yeah,
Thanks
great
for
stuff.
having us.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Cole. It's a lot of good information, a lot of things we couldn't cover today, but a lot of good work going on out there to stop the movement. Some people think we're sitting around, but no, we're out there working. We're busy. We're busy folks. So I appreciate what you guys do. It was nice to meet you today.
Yes, nice to meet you, Jason.
And this is Tennessee Wildcast. Thank you, Mimi.
My pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do. Tennessee Wildcast will be on the air again next week. We'll see you then.